Hello, I'm Marian O'Rourke Kaplan, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to develop a strapless bodice, commonly referred to as a bustier. Any strapless garment, whether it's a dress, a top, or a long ball gown, that is strapless, has no means of support other than the inner bonings, is developed this way. So the first thing you want to do is have your sketch of your garment that you're going to be making, and I'm going to be working towards this strapless top. You can see that it goes past the waist. I'm going to be developing this today. So what I want to put on my form before I get started draping is I need to have the exterior lines, the neckline and the hemline on the form. So referring to my sketch, I will develop those with this draping tape. You can also use twill tape, but this is nice and flexible, so it works very well. Step one is to collapse your form. It will better fit the human figure when these shoulders are pulled in. So we want to set the tape in the shape of our sketch. It's a common mistake by new drapers is that they make this line too low, too close to the bust point. Remember, the bust point is here. The garments always settle on the body a little bit, so we want to be sure and drape them high enough that when they settle, it'll still not cause a wardrobe malfunction. And remember, in this area here, from the screw in the plate down to the bust point, you should try to stay within 3/4 to an inch from that. And then come under the plate. Continue around the back to center back. So it's a nice, smooth, flowing line. Comes to a V in the front, like my sketch. The lower portion, you can see in the sketch that my waistline is here at this indentation, and so I'm going to mark it about 3 to 4 inches down, starting at center front. And then it comes up a little bit in a soft curve on the hip. And back to center back. Now it's best if you step away a little bit. Look at it and see if you need to adjust any of the curves. Make it nice and smooth. And look at it in reference to your sketch so that you feel comfortable that it's in the right place. Now I'm ready to develop my support bodice. This particular piece of the garment is what holds it up against gravity. And so, as in everything that we drape, we want to know the longest point, and we need to know the widest point to develop our block, to tear our block. So the widest point for this center panel, we're going to do a princess line support bodice, is from here down to the waist. And we're going to add 5 to that. And then the widest point will again be at the bust point, and we're going to add 5 to that. Okay, the long measurement is parallel to your selvage. Clip. And the width is perpendicular to that. check it for true, and you can see that it's very warped in this case, so I'm going to take the short corners, give it a good tug, try it again, make sure that they're level, needs a little bit more. Okay, that's good. And then we want to draw our center front line 1 inch from the selvage. Use a darker pencil for you. Okay. So now I'm ready to start. And this piece is going to be secured at center along the seam on the form. You can feel the seam through the muslin. You want to be sure and get your line right on that sew line. And pin at the opposite that you're going to be working. Okay. This particular piece is very simple. You want it nice and snug. You're not going to put any wearing ease in it. You'll mark, you can see the tape through. Hopefully you can see that on the video as well. And I'm going to mark along my tape until I come to my princess line on the form. And then I will follow my princess line down. And when I get to my waist, I can see this tension here, so I'm going to do a little bit of clipping to release that tension. Again, this is a support bodice, so we don't want any wearing ease in it. Want it nice and snug against the form. And then I can trim this down to about 1 inch. And 1/2 inch at the top. It's plenty. Then I need to add my notches for the bust ease zone. The bust point is here. Okay, so 2 inches above a notch and 2 inches below a notch. Okay, we're finished with the first panel. The second panel is going to be your side front, and the longest point is clearly here, down to the waist. Add 5, so it's the same length as we had on the center panel, but the width is going to be here wrapped around to the side, and that's considerably bigger. In both cases, we're going to add 5 inches. Okay, so it's the same length, so I can just continue. And then across my goods, take my width measurement, Screw it up. It's just a little bit off now. Okay, it's good. Now in this case, it's the side panel, so I'm not going to put my grain line 1 inch away because it could very easily get cut off. So I want to put my grain in the middle of the block. So I fold it on the lengthwise and just do a finger press. So when I open it up, I can see that fold line, and that's where I'm going to put my grain. Line it up with your ruler. And put your grain in the center of the block. Okay? So to start, I want to have this parallel to my center front. So I lay it here parallel to the center front. And then I'm going to take the block and wrap it around the form. And you can see like a dart and a dart here. You don't want it to come where all the fullness is in the bottom or all in the top. You want it to wrap around so that there's obviously 2 areas of fullness. And then put 2 pins in the side panel so that it can't pivot. If you put just 1, it'll pivot. You can put 2, you can put them across or up and down, doesn't matter. But just so that the block won't pivot, then you're going to release this. Okay? And so for this particular piece, we're going to start with the side seam because it has no fit in it. And we're going to push our fit down, over and up. Okay? So start by marking our side seam. There's a nice heavy seam on the form that you can follow. Follow the tape for the neckline. Trim some of this because it's getting in my way. Okay, and then I will just simply move the fabric over so that there's no fullness in here, nice and snug. It's very important. This upper edge is snug against the form. And I will mark the neckline up until I get to this princess line. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to start down here at the waist. Again, because it's the support bodice, there's no wearing ease. You can see this tension here. I'm going to do a little clipping. Sure you don't cut through your seam line there, but I want to clip it so that it's not going to be in my way when I'm placing the side on it. Sorry, that keeps folding. Release this tension here. See, I still have these buckles. There, now it's laying smooth. And take it all the way to the princess line. And any fullness that there is, you want to push up towards the bust, because that's where it needs the fullness. So we'll go ahead and mark our waistline. And start up the princess. I can see the marks on my center panel for my princess line through this muslin. So it makes it easy to mark at the same spot. Okay, and I'm going to go up until I find my notch. Remember, I made those notches 2 inches down. Remove a little bit of this excess. Let's work down to this notch. It's only a little ways down. Marking my princess line and my notch. Okay, so I have the princess line and the notch marked, and then any excess ease or fullness is right here on the bust point, and you can see that there's a little tiny, like dart's worth, so it's about 1/4 of an inch, and that's going to be spread across this whole area. So I use my fingers and spread them out. Let's get this secured at the notch. Spread my fingers out a little bit and sort of divvy up the fullness so that it's evenly distributed across that zone. And then I put pins in the valleys where my fingers are. It's not going to stay there. And then I can go back and mark this on the same marks that I have on my underbodice. Okay. Now let's turn it under and pin them together. Folding it on my marks. And pin just the drape together, not into the form. Bad pin. Okay, so in each case I'm folding it on my marks, bringing them to the marks of the under or the center panel, excuse me. And making sure that my notches line up. It's slipping down because there's no bone in it. Let me hold that up there. Okay. All right, so in here we've got just a little bit of ease we want to put between each of our pins. So you get a little bubbling in here, but that's not going to show up in the final garment. This looks a little stressed out here, so I'm going to check it. And maybe it's just because this seam allowance is so thick. Yes, that released it. Okay, much better. Now this can be removed. You want to check your neckline, make sure that it's still nice and snug. It might need a little bit of tightening, which you can easily do at this princess seam. And then remark it with one of your colored pencils. Draw across there. And your princess line. Okay, we're ready for the back. The longest point on this is going to be at the side. You can see how it drops down. So the longest point for the back panel, which is one piece, is the side, +5. And the widest is up here at the top. So it's a square, 14 by 14 according to my calculations for this particular drape. Lots of threads. Okay, so you want to be able to fold it, make sure that it's on the trued grain. This particular piece is out of the center of my muslin, so it's not that uncommon for it to be very true in the center and to be more warped on the sides by the selvage. So this looks good to me, and I'm going to go ahead and draw my center back grain line, which is going to be 1 inch from the lengthwise edge. Okay, and when we put it on here, we want to make sure that we make it high enough that I can get to this upper edge and have some seam allowance. So it's quite a bit up from where my back neck is. And then pin it along center back just like we did on center front. down to the waistline. Because there's no breasts in the back, just shoulder blades, and this neckline comes below those shoulder blades, there's not going to be any fit in this. It simply wraps to the side seam. You clip to release this and mark your lines. You take a little more tension off here. You can clip it as many times as you need to release that tension, but just be sure that you stay away from that seam. You want to be sure and have at least a ½ an inch past the waistline seam that's secured so you don't get any warping when you're transferring it to a pattern. Okay, so I'm going to mark my neckline. Ahead and trim off some of this excess on the top. Make sure that it's nice and snug, no wearing ease. I've got to move these pins so they're not in the way. When I come around with the waist, okay, you can see how the muslin's stressed there. I've got to release that. So I'm ready to mark my side seam. Okay, and trim off this excess. Take it down to about 1 inch. Fold it on your marks. And pin it to the side front. Okay, and then take your colored pencil and confirm your neckline, your waistline. Which is very different than my back. Okay. Okay, and you're finished draping the support bodice. You want to, as snug as we've made this, we need to make it a little snugger. The dress forms are designed in such a way that they create the measurements that we have on the body, but by doing that, they're not really realistic to the human form, meaning that they don't have breasts, so to speak. It's a continuous flow through here, and the support bodice needs to form a cup in the dress so that it supports the breast. And so in order to do that, we're going to have to do some contouring so that this doesn't stand away from the bust point in the final garment. We need it to snug up against the body. So in order to do that, we do some contouring, and there's very specific rules to the contouring on the princess. I want to make sure I didn't confirm my notch here, so I want to confirm that before I take it apart. So we have a 3-piece support bodice. The back, the side front, and your center front. Now to clean these up, we need to use a ruler and a French curve, and to do it with our colored pencils so that it shows up more clearly. But to contour this and to snug it up at the top and underneath the bust, there's some basic rules. From where we've marked it, we want to come in 1/4 at the neckline, 2, 0 at the 2-inch notch. Okay, and then we have our bust point. Our second notch is 2 inches below that. So at that 2 inches below, we want to come in 1/2 of an inch. And blend it to the bust point, to 0 at the bust point. This is going to give us a very odd shape. I mean, it's going to be very in and out, very curvilicious, so to speak. And that's good because we want the bone to sit on that and support the breast. So when we're done with this, you'll do that to the same thing to the center front. Same exact thing, 1/4 over to nothing at the notch, and 1/2 inch here to nothing, and down to nothing. So when you're done, you're going to have a contoured and cleaned up pattern piece that looks like this. Your center front piece has this really unusual curve in it. That's what our goal is. Our side is very bust shaped, and the back panel is going to have this curve of the waist, but it has no fit in it, no darts, no ease or anything. And you want to make sure that everything sews together, that these are the same length, that these from notch to neckline and from lower notch to waistline are the same, and that in here you're going to have a little bit of ease, so this will be a little bit longer than this measurement. But this is how you clean it up to prepare it for a pattern. When you transfer this to a pattern, you'll do it like any other pattern that you do, where you transfer any straight lines with a push pin, and all the curved lines are going to be traced with the tracing wheel, and add your seam allowances. Your finished pattern for the support will look like this. And I'm doing a centered zipper, so I had to be sure and true my center back because I have a V neck. It's not straight, it's a V neck. And so it has to be trued so that there's fabric there when it bends back to catch the zipper. But I add a 1/4 inch seam allowance along the neck, 1/2 inch on the body seams, 3/4 of the center back because I'm going to do a centered or a lapped zipper. A support bodice, bustier garment with a support bodice like this is not ideal for a invisible zipper, which I know is many students' favorites. But the pressure of this support bodice at the waistline on a invisible zipper will often break it and make it pop open. So it's not ideal. You either need to do a centered or a lapped zipper. So this is what your pattern will look like when you have it ready. You want to cut this out in muslin. It's the best fabric for this. You can use other really stable fabrications, but muslin is available and does a really good job. You're going to sew up the 3 seams, the side seams and the princess lines, and then press the seams open. You can see how I have the seams pressed open, and you're going to stay stitch this top edge. Be sure and stay stitch at 1/4 all the length of the neckline. That's so that it won't stretch, because you're going to be putting this boned bodice back on the form to drape your outer bodice over it. One unusual notch that you want to add in the back, be sure and put a notch up at the faced edge so that it wouldn't possibly get confused in the sewing room to the waistline. So I just be sure it's off center, but just do a double notch somewhere on this facing line, and that'll keep it upright. But you can see how sharply curved this bust seam is, and that's exactly the way it should be. So press those seams open, stay stitch the edge, and then you're ready to set your boning. And when you take your boning, we've got, this is Ridgeline. It's about 1/2 inch wide, and you want to measure the seam to see how long to cut it. So you go from sew line at the waist, across the bust, and up to the neck. And we're going to back it off 1/4 inch from the neckline edge to allow room for seam allowances when they come down in there from the facing. So my particular one measures 12 inches. So I would cut my bone 12 inches long. You'd have 2 of these. It's nice and rigid. It's a little uneven. You cut 2 of the 12-inch ones. Mine's 12 inch, whatever yours measures. And then you're going to do your side seam as well. Measure your side seam. And again, 1/4 of an inch below the sew line, down to your waist sew line. See what that seam measures. 8.5. So I would cut 2 8.5s for the side seams and 2 12-inch for my princess line seam. And then you want to be sure that the curl is facing you when you set it on the machine. You lay the bone so that it's centered in your seam allowance, 1/4 of an inch down, and you stitch it in place, moving this as you go and being sure that you keep it in the center. But moving the fabric so that you don't get any tucks or anything like that here. You want to be sure and control your fabric as you join it. And your finished bodice, support bodice, is going to look like this with the bones. All see how they're curved. So that's so that when they come towards the body, they, instead of away from the body, they're going to come into the body. And that's how you get your support in your final garment. As those bones were sitting, they will sit right here on the waist and hold the garment up. And that's your support bodice.